Welcome to season 14 of the Parenting Aces podcast. I'm your host, Lisa Stone, and this week we are talking all things high school tennis with my guest, Scott Gerber of the Ohio Tennis Zone. Ohio Tennis Zone is this amazing website, this amazing platform that Scott created after his own two kids played high school tennis, and he realized there was no place to look up stats, to see pictures, to see any kind of data around the teams in the state of Ohio. So Scott used his knowledge and created this site that he's been building over the last 12 or so years. And I'm super excited to share it with you guys. If you're listening to this, you might want to check out the video version because Scott does share screen at points in the conversation, and you'll get to see Ohio Tennis Zone actually in action. So now I want you to sit back, relax, and enjoy our conversation on high school tennis with Scott Gerber. Scott, it's so great to finally meet you. I have been following you for quite some time on social media. We have had interactions, but this is the first time I'm getting you on the podcast, so welcome.
Well, thank you very much, Lisa. I appreciate the opportunity to be on your podcast. It's a lot of fun. This is Ohio High School Tennis. The season started today, so what perfect timing.
I know. And we are recording this actually during the second week of the BNP Paribas Open. It's not going to air for a few weeks, unfortunately, because I'm getting ready to go on vacation for a few weeks. But we are going to get this done and out as soon as possible. And I'm super excited to have this conversation with you around high school tennis because, as you and I discussed, this is a topic that comes up quite often with Parenting Aces parents and players and even the junior coaches. And there seems to be sort of a disconnect between junior tennis coaches and high school tennis. And parents and players alike have a lot of questions about what they should be doing, especially those kids that are looking to go on to play college tennis. So we're going to get into the weeds here today.
That sounds great. Before we go too far, I'd like to congratulate you. I understand that you were named 16th in the top 100 tennis podcasts. So congratulations to that. That, of course, puts more pressure on me because I don't want you to drop out of the top 20 after today's podcast. So, but congratulations on that.
Thank you. Yeah, those award things are so interesting. I didn't even know I was in contention until I saw the announcement. So super happy about that. But yeah, let's get into this high school tennis thing. I want to back up a little bit because I want people to understand why you are doing what you're doing. And that is because you have two kids who grew up playing junior tennis and went on to play high school tennis. And I'd love for you to talk a little bit about what kind of got them interested in the game and got them interested in playing for their high schools.
Sure. Well, I've always loved tennis, but also enjoyed other sports too. So we got the kids involved with basketball, softball, baseball, and of course, tennis. And we found that they were pretty good hand-eye. I think they probably got that from their mother. And it's just such a great sport. I was just at a wrestling tournament over the weekend, and I'm going, okay, not too many of these people are going to be doing wrestling when they're 50s, 40s, 30s, or 20s. But every time you pick up a tennis racket, it's an investment. You're going to be able to continue using it, hopefully throughout most of your life. And it also sort of a gateway to other racket sports. I also play a lot of platform tennis. That's a winter sport that's played here in Ohio and mainly in the eastern part of the United States, but they also had courts in Atlanta. You may have been involved or seen some of that at one time. And so I played that a lot in the past, at least in the winter. Tennis has been more of a summer thing, but with the kids, it was great. I was able to hit with them a lot. It was a big deal to be recognized for being a good tennis player, at least in Ohio here. So it was an opportunity for them to really have something good going for them in high school. And then, but we did the USTA grind as well in terms of, I swear, every tournament that our son went to, it seemed like it was in northern Chicago. And I'm out of Columbus, Ohio here. So it seemed like everything was in northern Chicago or western Chicago in the winter, of course. So we've done that grind too, but high school was just very beneficial. At that point, there was no coaching on the sidelines other than maybe at the end of the second set, but Ohio has continued to make improvements. So we've benefited here the last few years by having coaches be able to provide comments much like college coaches can, as long as they don't slow down the match. So that's been a nice improvement for the junior players. And so just a lot of great positives. But tennis is really in Ohio. You can really become a team member without a great deal of expensive coaching or traveling. You find a wall, you look at a few videos on YouTube, maybe you get a buddy to take a video of you with the phone, and you can get pretty close to making a tennis team and maybe participating on third singles or second dubs.
Love that. Love that. And what's so interesting is, when you think of Ohio, you don't think of it as being a tennis hotspot. However, there have been some great players that have come out of Ohio. Ohio State has, every year has very competitive men's and women's teams, and they love to recruit locally in the area, which, does my heart good. And I think that's super cool. So, when I first came across Ohio Tennis Zone and the work that you're doing, I was like, Ohio, that's so crazy. But what you're doing is making such a difference. And one thing I want to point out to our listeners / viewers, and hopefully you guys are going to view this because Scott's going to share a screen in a few minutes and dive into some of the work that he does. But every high school athletic association has different rules around tennis and all the sports that it governs. So what you and I are talking about today in terms of Ohio high school tennis may not hold true for other school districts. It's really important for the parents to understand that if your child is considering, which I hope they are, playing high school tennis, that you do your research and understand the rules around that, the rules around training outside of school, the rules around competing outside of school, and just go in with your eyes open.
Yeah, absolutely. And these rules change. Ohio has relaxed its rules here more recently. The way it used to be when our son played is you could not, once you started the high school season, you could not go off and play an Easter Bowl or any of the big tournaments. So that kept a lot of kids out of high school tennis completely, or at least it caused them to start the season later than what they would like. So that rule has been changed. The coaching thing has just been changed. So there's been a lot of nice improvements. And I should probably back up just a little bit and also mention, because it's a lot of these other rules are different, is that we have 3 singles matches and 2 doubles matches. So you win a match by winning 3 of those courts. So you can have the third singles player win it all for you, or second dubs, but every court, it counts the same. So that's another element of high school season. And so you have the number 1 player who's cheering for the number 3, and it just gets everybody involved. It's fun. And when they do the morning announcements, it's neat to be able to hear your name mentioned.
I love that. Do you play all 5 lines simultaneously, or do y'all start with singles or start with doubles? How does that work?
It's all at one time.
Okay.
And so therefore it's not like you could do thirds, you could do dubs and then have them move into singles. So it takes 7 different players.
Interesting.
And you do them all at the same time.
Okay. So when my son was playing high school tennis, which was a long time ago, they played the singles separate from the doubles. So it was, you could play both. And so it was a little bit different, but that may have changed too in Georgia. I don't know. It's been a minute, but I want to dive into Ohio Tennis Zone, and I want you to tell us what the impetus was for you to develop this website. And as Scott and I were talking before we went hit the record button, our stories are very similar in terms of the why behind what we're doing. But Scott, I want you to share your story with the Parenting Aces audience.
Well, sure. I worked in the technical field. Really wasn't with coding. I worked for a company called CompuServe, which was a predecessor to the internet. We were purchased by America Online. So I mainly worked in product development and marketing. So I had some skills, but it was time to hit the books when I started the website. So I felt there was a need for better media coverage. At that point, I was even really just harvesting scores from newspapers and things like that around Ohio. But even those went by the wayside as the staffs have cut back considerably at these various publications. So I found that I had a knack for being able to do the programming. I do all my own programming. And it was really more of a challenge than anything else. And also just, again, I thought it was important to recognize the kids. There were always comments saying, oh, gee, this player's better than that player. I'm like, no, I don't think so. I'll just lay out my own list. So a lot of the service was very, very analytical, very, very numbers driven initially, but I found that I only really had financial advisors and engineers as customers. So I realized I needed to do more with photos and video and things like that. So this is not the most graphically enhanced site, but it's largely functional.
Do you want to share your screen and let's look at what Ohio Tennis Zone looks like while you're kind of walking us through the why of it?
Sure. Let me jump into it. So there's different aspects of the system. Can you see everything okay?
I am not seeing it at the moment. Are you sharing?
I should be sharing. No, I think I failed the technology test already.
Uh-oh. We know it works because we tested before we hit record. Here we go.
Do you have it?
There you are. Yes.
Perfect. Okay. Well, there's a team perspective of Ohio Tennis Zone and also an individual. I'll jump into Mason, Ohio. If you watch very much of the Western Southern Open or Cincinnati Open, you've probably heard of Mason. That's the high school that the Lindner Family Tennis Center is around. So you have a lot of these. This is a phenomenally good school tennis-wise, good demographics too. And you'll find that a lot of these parents and kids are volunteering at the Cincinnati Open. And I think probably a little bit of that rubs off because they're really into tennis and they do a great job. But what I do is, again, there's a lot of analytics. I'm recognizing the players who are on my top lists. There's a number of players who are playing in college that's listed. And then, let me just, one thing I was going to do before I jumped in was sign in. And let's see, let me go back to the girls. So you have the players who are playing college tennis. And then I really start getting into the analytics. And that is, I picked this up, Ohio State is so close to us. So I'm going down there, taking some ideas once in a while. And one thing I saw that they were doing a nice job is indicating the record of all the various players on a by-court basis. So I provide that. Then I get into, and more about that in just a second. And then I get into a lot of graphs. So this is where I'm able to do more analysis in terms of identifying the top teams, because you see Cassidy's winning 71% of her games on court one, and that's conveyed across the entire way here. So you can quickly identify teams' strengths and weaknesses as easy to see graphs.
Very cool. It looks like Mason High School is a very strong team.
Yeah, absolutely. And they were 19-0 last season. And again, you
Wow.
don't see a lot of low numbers here because they're winning their courts. And then you can jump in. Let me jump into one other report. So you can see how all the various players do, but I take it across all teams as well. So not only do you have on a per team basis, but I take it across all the teams who enter scores into Ohio Tennis Zone from throughout Ohio. So all these players, many of these players are likely to play college tennis. And then I can also recognize all the players on court 2 singles, court 3 singles, first dubs and second dubs. So
Very
it's
cool.
a way to recognize far more players than you would otherwise.
And so the team itself enters their data into your site. Is that how that works?
Yes, that is correct. I do very little harvesting of data now. I once did that, as I said, quite a bit before, but it really now they do all their entry, and many times they'll have a student or a player or a parent who's doing it. For students, I actually enjoy that because I know it's something they're eventually going to put on their resume, and I know it's something they're going to remember down the road, and it's hopefully something that will help them toward the future.
It's so interesting because I remember when UTR first came out and first started capturing high school tennis data, and I was the parent who submitted everything for my son's team. And not only my son's team, but as it turned out, our whole little region, because people were just starting to learn about it, right? And it was very cool just to see the kids start to get credit for
Right.
playing these matches, right? You've taken it way beyond just getting credit. This is actually building a statistical story of their high school career, which hopefully they're using in college recruiting. And what do you hear from kids about that?
Well, this is a great way, since our scores are not entered into tennisrecruiting.net or into UTR, it is a very effective way to share with college coaches how you're doing in high school. And, they're going to recognize, so let's just go on down. Addison Cassidy won states in our Division 1. We have 2 different divisions. So here's all the results of other people she's played against. And there's photos for many, links for many. So if you want to dial in and take a look at another player, again, photos that they have purchased, other results. And then there's also links to tennisrecruiting.net. You can see with Lauren, she actually tied it back to Ohio Tennis Zone. So a lot of links. I'm not really big into I want people to click around, but I want to provide a lot of information on each page. Mm-hmm. And I think I do that.
I love that there's that connection with tennisrecruiting.net, because we know that is a great resource for college-bound student athletes and a great resource for college coaches as well. So it's great that you've got those two linked together, and that you make it easy for a coach looking at a player to go back and forth between their OTZ page and their tennisrecruiting.net page.
Exactly. That's what I want it to be. I want it to be as much information as I can send their way in a short period of time. And, as I said, so they might have an interest in Lauren, but they might go, oh, gee, well, I want to go ahead and check out some of these other players at the same time. Maybe another player is a sophomore or junior. So hopefully it sort of enhances where we might get a few more kids playing college tennis or have more interest because of the website.
Yeah, I love that. So when you created this, what was the reason behind it? I mean, you said you wanted the kids to get recognition and you wanted to have a place to showcase them, but I mean, was it something you created when your own kids were playing, or when did that come about?
Well, our son graduated, as I said, in 2009. I really didn't have the time and skills until really after our daughter went out of the system. So this has been going for about 12 years. With Kyle, our son, he went on and played for Case Western, so had a good experience there. So again, I just stayed involved with tennis, and I like tennis, so really thought it was a way to just kind of give back, essentially. And again, I like the people, I like the sport. So when you go to the state tournament, it feels more like a reunion than an actual job.
Yeah. So today, your role with all of this is still continuing to update, to, I guess, get the word out that you exist, so that you've got a rep from each high school in Ohio actually reporting data to the site. And day to day, what do you have to do to maintain this?
Yeah, well, and it's I probably have scores. There's approximately 400 teams in Ohio that have tennis programs. I have scores for maybe a couple hundred, and
Okay.
then about 100 are members in some way, shape, or form, and that would include the best teams and most of the better teams too. As some of the smaller teams, just not as much interest in that. So, but I have a few of those too, because the Ohio Tennis Zone not only makes the record keeping easier for these coaches, but if you don't have a team like Mason's, for instance, you're looking for other opponents that you can play who will give your kids a good competitive match. So by sharing your results and looking at other results, you can, if you're a 500 level kind of team where you're 10-10, okay, you're going to look for other teams that are a similar record that your kids will have some fun.
So is that the way your season is set up, that the coaches set up the matches, or does the High School Athletic Association take care of that?
I think it's mainly the coaches and athletic directors, where they have to play their league matches, and then they have other matches they can fill in from there. And that's where they might bring in the competitive teams. Like, for instance, I mentioned Mason earlier. They're bringing in kids from Northeast Ohio teams that, one time I went to one of the Mason matches, and there's Mary Jo Fernandez, because her daughter was playing for this Northeast area team. And before long, who shows up but Mrs. Federer does, and Mrs. Federer's mother, or I think it was actually Roger Federer's mother. So he was down playing at the Western and Southern. Mary Jo was on ESPN. So the kids were going to enjoy a good competitive match, and then go on to the Western Southern the next day. But just, some of these interesting things are going on. Tony Godsick is Federer's agent. Some of your viewers might not be aware of that, but so it's just interesting connections that you see.
Yeah, that's very cool. Very cool. Besides setting up matches for their team, how else are high school coaches using OTZ?
Well, there is a lot of records, as I said. Let me jump into the tools area. So at the end of the season, I'm back here at the boys area right now. Here's a report for every player on the team and how well he did against all the various opponents. So when you can hand this out at your banquet, it makes a pretty good impression on the players and the parents. But
That's
also,
awesome.
as I said, once you end up, as you get more familiar, you find out who the other coaches are. And also, again, you want to win a match, but you want to make the best use of your players. So if you've lost a match 2-3 and you won on 2 courts 6-1, 6-1, okay, it's good for them, but you might not have used those players in a way to allow you to win the match, because the goal is to win the match. So it helps with strategy too. And of course, a lot of kids use this. So they're always advising their coach on what coaches should do. So it's a team effort, I'm sure. I'm not sure how many coaches might appreciate that, but the kids really love to weigh in on this. And there's a lot of kids that use this. I probably have about, Google Analytics says I have about 32,000 users, but the way that would equate, since people would be using Ohio Tennis Zone using more than one device, I'm guessing I probably have about 10,000 users statewide. So
that's amazing.
Yeah. So there's a lot.
I'm asking all these questions because I'm just thinking, if somebody that's watching or listening to this lives in a state other than Ohio, and this type of platform doesn't exist, and they're thinking, do I want to take the time to create something like this, or do I know somebody that could create something like this? I want to make sure that we share with the listeners how valuable this is. I know how valuable it is because I see you on social media, and I see you posting results and praising kids, praising coaches, praising high schools, reporting, so-and-so just committed here to play college tennis. I mean, to me, that is just so incredible, because as we know, other than Zoo Tennis and Parenting Aces and Ohio Tennis Zone, there aren't a lot of places reporting on junior tennis, and certainly not reporting on high school tennis.
Yeah, it's really a tough animal. I've seen a number of different services that kind of try to do it with tennis, but you start seeing where they're going. Okay, so what's the number of the player? What's his height? What his weight? I'm like, okay, you're trying to do too much with one system, and tennis is very, very unique in what it does. So it really does, I think, require quite a bit of custom work, which, at least in my case, I kind of enjoy that stuff.
Well, one of the things that jumps out at me too is how many of the kids playing Ohio State high school tennis are going on to play college tennis. And we don't see that everywhere across the country. We hear from junior coaches telling parents and players, oh, don't bother with high school tennis. It's a waste of your time. We have seen, there are high school tennis programs that are more recreational. They aren't really geared toward the quote high performance junior players that want to go on to play at a higher level. It's a big conundrum, for a lot of families. It was a conundrum in our house. What my son's freshman year, it wasn't an issue. He was gonna play high school tennis. There was no discussion about it. But after having a year under his belt, there was a lot of discussion about what to do in the remaining 3 years of his high school career.
Yeah, and I bet that happens throughout the country. Ohio, I think, is a little different. There is so much competition. I was just going through some of the top boys players today, and so let me just zoom on down here. In kind of the top group, we've got at least a couple blue chips, tennis recruiting blue chips. So they're gonna get good competition. We've got 5 stars, we've got 4 stars. So there's plenty of good competition. Now, if there's nobody else on the team that is even a 1 star, well, hopefully the coach is going to say, you know what, you can go off and play with the others in your clinics. I maybe need you for some matches, not all of your matches, but I think there just really needs to be a good dialogue between the player and the coach, maybe not so much the player's parents, but player and the coach, to make sure everybody's in sync on what's going to be possible. Some of these teams will set up matches knowing that the blue chip player is going to be there. So, there needs to be a good discussion all the way around to make sure that everybody's in sync on what's going on. But we have, okay, so Peyton Stearns, she did not play Ohio high school tennis. she would have won, even in the state tournament. It would have probably been like a 2-2 in the finals. Lauren Davis played her freshman year in Ohio high school tennis, won the tournament going away. I think she dropped a total of about 5 games in 4 matches. So some kids are not getting a lot out of it, but that is very rare. You're really going to have playing high school tennis is the right situation for you. I think probably 99% of the time. And we have on the Ohio State men's team, which is, again, 3rd in the nation. There's 2 players on that team that played high school tennis all 4 years. And the women's tennis team, 8th in the nation. There's plenty of high school tennis players on that team as well. So I don't think it holds you back. I would highly encourage it for all the kids.
Well, I love that you said that the conversation needs to happen between the player and the high school coach, because that was exactly our experience. It's been the experience of most of the families that I've talked to over the years, that a high school coach is going to be way more responsive to the player who comes in and says, hey, coach, these are my goals for my tennis. I want to be part of this team this year. Is there some kind of way that we can work together so I can continue to grow my game, continue to compete at, in the events that are going to help me get recruited to play college tennis later on, but also I want to be a contributing member to this team. Let's find a way to make that happen. Because here's the thing, right, Scott, that even, the John and Katie McNallys of the world, they come into high school tennis, they are undoubtedly going to be the top player in their school, probably in their region, maybe in the whole state, but they have something to offer other than their tennis on-court play to the team. And this is why I feel like high school tennis is so valuable, because in a sport that is all about me from the player's side, to go into your high school team and know that you have something positive to offer your teammates to help them either learn something new about this sport that they may not know, because maybe they don't play tournaments, they don't know anything about all of that, right, or just to see you in action, to be on the court with you and get to feel how it feels to hit against a nationally ranked player or an internationally ranked player. This is important for growing the game, for growing the individual as a human being, and for keeping high school tennis relevant in the big picture.
Yeah, I agree. There's so much the kids can get out of it. And I'll have parents say, hey, they need a break. They need a break from the grind. This is fun. They're waking up in their own bed. They're not going, we're not spending $700 for a tournament. We're able to play a lot of good competition. You get to be with your classmates. There's a lot of advantages. So I always encourage it. Occasionally I'll hear players are thinking of not playing high school tennis, and I would love to intervene if possible. But again, we have a lot of kids who do play it. One of our better female players has won 3 state tournaments in a row, Maya Bowles. And she's almost a 10 in UTR. So she's going to continue doing well. And I know she worked some things out with her coach where she plays league matches and then, of course, the state tournament. But I think it works out well for all the parties.
Yeah. So one of the kind of wall butting things that tends to happen is that the high school coach doesn't necessarily understand the high performance junior tennis world and the tournament world, and doesn't understand the need for a high performance player to be able to balance their time training with their high school team and training with their personal coach. And I know, again, in my son's case, the high school tennis coach was the football one of the football coaches, not even like he was an assistant football coach.
Right.
He didn't know anything about tennis. He didn't play the game. He didn't know anything about it. So he relied on the team players to educate him about what was going on in the world of junior tennis so that he could come to some compromise that benefited everybody in the end.
Well, that's great that he did that. It's great when you have a coach who knows what he doesn't know and then finds out. I found that a lot of basketball coaches make very good tennis coaches because they have it's everything is so, you have footwork, you have reaching, you have a lot of very comparable types of competitive ideas. So it's fun to see that happen, once in a while too.
So Scott, if parents are kind of wavering about, should I let my kid play high school tennis? Should I not let my kid play high school tennis? What are some of the selling points from where you sit? If you were talking to a parent, what are some of the things you would say to them?
I would, especially if you're talking about the younger players. Oh, in Ohio, we start the girls' season in the fall. So even before school starts, the girls' season's underway. Mm. So what a great way to get to know a few kids in the school, get to know some of the older kids. You're going to see them walking around the hallways. It's just a great way. And again, if you're a better player, you're going to be greatly appreciated. So there's a lot of camaraderie that can happen with these players. And you're dealing, another selling point is, of course, hopefully you do have a good coach who can pass on some advice, especially in those windy matches or cold matches. And you're also dealing with some older upperclassmen too, if you're a younger player and you're not accustomed to seeing them on USTA draw sheets. So just a lot of and you're helping the school. So as long as you can get some good things going with the coach, which I think most coaches anymore are agreeable to those types of things, I think it's a win-win for everybody.
Yeah, agreed, 100%. What else do you want to show us on the website?
Oh, let's see. I currently have, this is the draw sheet for the state tournament. That's about 96 players who are able to be invited to this tournament. So a very small number of about 4,000 kids overall would be playing high school tennis in Ohio. So to be one of the 96, you're looking at about 2.5% of the kids who actually get to participate in this. So this is one fun report where I have photos of everybody. Another report that I have is, again, we do have a fair number of college. We have a number of D3 schools around in Ohio. Let me find that real quick. So we have about 120, 130 kids who are playing college tennis. And I try to keep track of who they are and how they're doing. So Shyla, you can click through quickly and see how she's doing at Yale. Somewhat quickly. Okay, there we go.
So it takes you right to the college website. It takes you right to the college website. I love that.
Yeah. So again, I try to make it so that you can get a lot of good, valuable data quickly.
Yeah.
We'll go back, and then one other report that's still actually in beta, because I'm trying to make it so that kids are able to, one second. Try to make it so I don't have to do any more data collection, but I want to recognize the players who participated in the school in the past. So this is a new report I'm going to be throwing out there. So not only do you get the players, but you also get their LinkedIn links too.
Oh, very cool.
Yeah. So under development.
I love it. I love it. So you're continuing to expand the site to provide even more information on these current high school kids, the ones who've already graduated and gone on to college, and even the ones who've graduated college now and are out in the workforce.
Yeah, it's fun to follow. I don't do as many interviews as like a Colette Lewis or what you would do. I do some just because I feel like I need to, but I do like to keep track of what the kids are up to. And I would love to interview some of these kids, but that's hard to do. So I felt the next best way of going about it would be including their LinkedIn links and let people explore what they want.
Yeah, that's very cool. I think it's interesting to click through that, see where these kids wound up playing in college, and then what their majors were, what their job search is looking like, what they're interested in pursuing as a career. And we know junior tennis players tend to be at the higher end of the academic spectrum. They typically perform very well in school. There's so many great universities and colleges out there for them to go on to play college tennis.
Well,
and
that's because they have great parents too. I think you need to throw that in there too.
Well, that is a big factor for sure. I think overall as a sport, tennis families tend to value education. And so I think it's very cool to go click through this, understand what doors are open to these kids that may or may not have anything to do with tennis long term, but there are so many opportunities for them, and tennis is such a great door opener for them.
Absolutely. And it's our son still plays a little bit of tennis, but it is hard for him to find a good match. He's in the DC area, so he's playing a lot of platform tennis now. And so just having it, it's a great sport. All these are great racket sports, and you're staying healthy, hopefully, and not breaking things, and having a lot of fun. So again, I view all these expenses and all this time as just a great investment that they can use later in life.
For sure. If any of our viewers or listeners are interested in creating something similar for their district, are you willing to have a phone call or an email exchange?
Yeah, that would be fine. It's probably best they don't have their spouse in on this call, because their spouse will not want to hear this. So
time consuming.
It's very time consuming.
Yeah, I get that. Well, congratulations on the great work that you've done in the past, the great work you're continuing to do. Like I said, our stories are kind of similar in that we saw a need for something and kind of filled in the gaps. And now our kids are off as grown-ups, but here we still sit.
I shouldn't say it keeps me out of trouble, because that's not the case. I still find more stuff to get into. So, but yeah, it's a lot of fun, and it's a lot of ways to just keep old friendships going.
Love it. And a great way to promote high school tennis, which is the crux of this conversation. I hope that everybody that has tuned into this episode, if your kid is approaching high school age or is already in high school, please take a close look at the high school tennis options available to them. Encourage them to have that conversation with the high school coach to come up with a plan that works for everybody so that they can experience this incredible piece of the junior tennis journey.
Absolutely.
Scott, thank you so much for taking time to chat with us. It's a pleasure getting to meet you finally. And, like I said, I felt like I knew you because of our social media interactions, but now I've got a face and a voice to put with you. And I'm just so impressed by what you've accomplished here, and hope you don't retire from it anytime soon, because Ohio high school tennis needs you. And hopefully you're going to be an inspiration to parents around the country to create something similar in their area. To my listeners, thank you so much for tuning in, and we will catch you next time on Parenting Aces.
Thanks, Lisa.